A motion from Deputy Mayor Corp. Is there a second? We have a second from Councilmember Heller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of suspending the rules and moving item 12.4 to 5A signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. And now I would ask that we motion to approve the agenda as amended. Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Barnes, a second from Deputy Mayor Corp. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The agenda is approved. Thank you, Council. Okay, since we have no presentations and Administrator Dan will work with Representative Kildo's office to see when we can get her on at the earliest convenience. We will move to new item 5A, which is the ordinance regarding proposed amendment to the DuPont Municipal Code, Title 25, to revise development regulations for the Business Technology Park Zone District. This is scheduled for second reading, so Council tonight will either need to vote on it or take action to move it to some other time. And I would ask Mr. Wilson if you would start off with a discussion of the subcommittee's work, and then I would ask if the subcommittee then wants to add into that. I would welcome it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to apologize in advance because I may go into an uncontrolled coughing fit at some time, but I'm going to do my best.
Would you like a cough drop? I have.
I've got a bag full of it. Okay. So, as the mayor indicated, the council held another subcommittee meeting. Went through and further reviewed the proposed changes to the text of the BTP and the mixed-use village designations at the council's direction. And that was held last Thursday. And as a result of that, there were recommended changes. I'll try and summarize this. And Sandy, in the presentation folder, I put a little. Sandy, I'm sorry. Former city clerk, I'm really going back in that. Apologize, Kevin. There's I put a little summary of, there should be a presentation folder, I think, and then next So thank you very much. So this is kind of a synopsis, and a copy of this is in your packet where they walk through the changes that they made from the Planning Commission's original recommendations and even to the iteration that you saw during the last workshop. So under 1 here, we've added a new section under 2541.015. This is the cumulative of all the changes, so we've discussed a little bit of these. And this is basically definitions, and it's creating a definition for light manufacturing, which we currently do not have. This is an interim definition. We put it in this section of the code until such time as we can run, and then the rest of the DMC under 25.10, where we have all of our definitions. We wanted to make sure that this was in place to be applicable to this section of the code and not have to wait for the other work to follow up. The second change on 2541.020A, the table of land uses, entirely they've struck warehouse, not warehouse distribution, warehouse from the table using underlined strikeout, so that warehouse or warehousing has been completely removed from the table of land uses in the packet. Let me scroll up. In the table, we've identified 2 additional changes. We had consolidated retail, trade, and service businesses under one category. They really are kind of 2 distinct things, so in our discussions, we segregated those out, so we list retail trade, like in the commercial district, and then we identified service businesses, and this is, they're separate. We don't want to treat a contractor the same we do as an ice cream store. So we want to differentiate between those 2 types of use. The contractor is going to fall under professional services, whereas an ice cream store or some other type of commercial activity is going to fall under the retail trade category. So we want to make sure we distinguish between the 2. So we've added both of those in there into the. We've separated out from one row. We created headings for both in the plan. Under 2541.020E, we replaced self-storage with mini storage. And this is to be consistent with the existing definitions that we have within the code already. Number 4, we added the slash between warehouse distribution, and this is to be consistent with our definitions in the code. So it's warehouse slash distribution. Number 5, under 2541.025 for conditional use criteria. Basically, it adds code language that states that this criteria should be considered in addition to all the criteria of our existing conditional use permits. So we already have criteria for general conditional use permits. We added additional ones, provide additional security and levels of review for this particular area, so we can have more control over how property was developed into those areas that they had to go through conditional use permit. We included in the code language to address the following. Basically, all applications provide a truck routing plan to and from the project site. That means if the project site is located within the MUB area and they need to go through conditional use permit, we're going to require a truck routing plan for the entire route as it goes to and from that site, and to show where their staging areas and everything else is going to be outside. Even if it's outside the MUB, this is for that location of the business within the MUB area. So it gives us that ability to require an additional level of detail and ask for that to be included, thought out as part of their application. They will also provide elevations and materials to ensure compatibility. This is looking at the building design, so we're making sure that we're adding an additional criteria in the conditional use permit to look at elevations and the materials that we're going to be using in the project as part of our design review. We looked at amend 2541.050 with the dimensional standards. We added a footnote that non-residential uses under the setbacks reads the design standards in 2541.0603. DMC shall apply an additional to the dimensional standards. Again, we're tying into existing design standards in the city to make sure clearly we have the authority to review projects for the design and aesthetic aspects of the component of the project during our review. Number 7, I think that's supposed to be 2541.050. 6B is to remove warehouse and replace with ancillary uses. You have to read the whole context, but we're removing the word warehouses, but we're using ancillary uses, which is a common phrase we use throughout the code, and other define retail activities as an example. We may list 4 or 5 of them, and then we'll say and items which are similar to them, because we can't list the whole gamut and range of all retail activities and uses. So we use that ancillary use phrase is what we use in other portions throughout other portions of the code. Under 8, this is 2541.050.11, with noise levels should not exceed the maximum allowed in Chapter 9.09 DMC. Sound and vibration, we're tying it back to the thresholds in the code. I think there's maybe a little bit more on the for Class B commercial environment designations. Before it was, I think we had Class C, if I recall correctly, and it's been changed to Class B, going back to what it was in the current standards in the BTP zone. Number 9, we did some tinkering on the language here. There's some questions brought up about hazardous materials. Rather than quantifying numbers, we, in a short sense, we tied the incidental storage of hazardous materials on site to that, to the standards allowed under the RCW. So whatever is consistent with state law. So that's the state laws amended; those will change and vary the standards according to this, rather than trying to establish our own particular set of standards depending on the type of use. So we're tying it all back to the statutory authority in WAC, Washington Administrative Code 173.303, and RCW 7105, which is the 2 standards where we do our standards from. Line 10 there, we in 2541.0603, warehouse is replaced and light with and light. Again, the context of the entire statement, it'll make sense as you look at the whole standard there. The next one for 2541.060.3E, basically the note there is standards not needed since warehousing is not listed in the table of uses anymore, so we were able to kind of eliminate that particular portion. 12, under the current definitions for warehouse distribution, on the last page is for reference only. Since we don't allow warehouse distribution within the area, we still kind of leave it there as a reference. I mean, it's less there as reference only. We do have a definition within the code, an existing definition has been in the code for a number of years. So we're just using it as a reference only. I'm not sure if we have anything else beyond that. So that was a summary of the proposed changes that came out of the subcommittee workshop. And if members of the subcommittee that would like to provide any additional insight regarding that, and other than that, I'd be happy with myself and Mr. Gibbons, be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the entire packet. Also let you know that we have prepared or based on the language that we changed with these changes, we prepared a draft ordinance and presented that in front of you as well, that encompasses and incorporates all the changes that were identified in the recommendations coming from the subcommittee. It's reflective of all those changes.
Deputy Mayor Court.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as part of the subcommittee, first off, I want to thank those that were involved, Councilmember Coffey and Councilmember Barnes. And I want to also thank Councilmember Barnes for something he said last Thursday. He said that something to the effect that it's our job as council members to not only listen to the citizens, but to, I don't know, I couldn't use the exact words correctly, but interpret their intent on what it is that they don't want to see or that they do want to see out in the OFL. So it kind of grounded me a little bit as we were discussing some of these things. So I just wanted to mention, they were all mentioned up there, but one thing I do want to mention is that 25.40 BTP will go away once the zoning map is done, is that correct?
Once the property is rezoned, yes.
Right, so once the property is actually rezoned, the BTP chapter for 25.40 will go away and 25.41 will be the ruling DMC for that area. You'll notice that all the warehouse references were pretty much taken out except for the part that said warehouse/distribution is prohibited. That was intentional to make sure that there was no ambiguity or any, I guess when we were talking, loophole, somebody would think that they could put warehouses in there, so we wanted to make sure that that was pretty clear. The other thing we wanted to make sure is that all uses that currently authorized in BTP are still available to be developed, because that was an important part to make sure that we're not taking away current uses. The truck routing plan was another thing that when Councilmember Barnes mentioned that, I mean, that was kind of the intent of the citizens, was that we had some issues with trucks. We don't really want to see trucks. I think we all understand that there is going to be trucks in the OFL, but by creating that truck routing plan for all of it, I think we'll be able to limit some of the concerns that people have. The sound level, as was mentioned by the citizens, they didn't want that to be industrial. They wanted to maintain commercial like in BTP. We did that. You notice that anything that was added like that business, service business, there was no building size listed. We didn't want to start putting building sizes in there. We wanted to let the FAR and the buffers actually determine what that's going to be. The hazardous material was brought up. So instead of trying to come up with some arbitrary numbers as far as sizes, we just decided to go with the suggested by Ryan, which was a good suggestion to just go with what the WAC and the RCW dictates, because that way, if that changes, then our code doesn't need to change any language. It's already going to change with that. So those were the primary ones. So once again, I think that this is a good product. I understand that we have 3 new council members that have been here for about 2.5 months now, and we just got this out yesterday, and they hadn't seen it until now, so I'm sure that they may have some concerns, but from my perspective, I think that we've done a lot of work, and I think that we're probably at a solution that hopefully is going to, we're not going to make everybody happy with everything, but I think that this is a very good product from where it started.
Would any of the other subcommittee members like to make comment? Councilmember Barnes.
I will. Councilmember Court stole my grandstanding. But I do want to double touch on something you said, which was what we're trying to do is listen to citizens and what their concerns are, and as we move forward with what is the jewel of the town at this point. But I think this is a fantastic set of regulations. I think it's going to be incredibly good for the town, but I want to make sure that it's clear, as Councilmember Corp said, trucks was a major issue. This is not going to get rid of trucks. There will be trucks. I think we have done a good deal to mitigate that, but there will be trucks. There will be things that look an awful lot like a warehouse. There will be, it'll be a commercial zone. I think we have done incredible work, and I think we have come up with something that's going to be a fantastic way for the city to grow.
Councilmember Coffey.
Yes. We all know that this has been a long road. It's been a lot of wrangling and basically around the prohibition of warehouse distribution. And, after our last meeting, I realized, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, that I had file boxes in my garage from important meetings over the past. And I found one that says Old Fort Lake on it, and I found the agenda item from July 25th of 2006. And this is where we discussed where this all started. Because at that time, the landowner wanted to change the zoning to put in warehouse distribution. And they came forward with different iterations of a map of how much would be allowable. And in the end, we did not allow warehouse distribution. And I believe that is in a code that has been in place since 2006. It was from the ordinance of that year. So I guess the good thing is that we have found the original document that supports the prohibition on that. We're moving forward. I hope that there will be some vision of, this being a beautiful place and that it doesn't detract from our beautiful town of DuPont. We're all going to have to work together on this. We're going to have to be vigilant. So I do appreciate all of the citizens who have been really on top of this and made the council do their job and made the staff do their job. So, it really is, a good vote of confidence when we have citizens and council members that can work together and the staff and come up with something that we can live with. So I do appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're at the point we still have to do something. So a motion would be in order. Well, not yet, but they'll get to comment when we have comments. This was just to add, this is part of the report on the work. So now we need to take a motion to do something with your work. Okay, so,
Wait a minute, I have a comment.
okay.
I think, personally, I think that we need to decide whether or not we want to take a vote on this tonight, and I think other council members should be heard on the subject.
Okay, well, there's a process to do that, and if you were to make a motion to move this to another date, that would be fine, and then there would be an opportunity for the entire council to comment on it. I'm sure we're not taking comments from the audience.
No, I'm not talking about council. Anyway, so you're asking for a motion to put this on the table?
Either to move it to, it's in second reading, so you could, a motion to approve it, you could take a motion to move it to another meeting, but we have to take some action with it. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, at this stage, it's at second reading. Clearly, you can continue to have discussion on it, but eventually somebody needs to make a motion, either have an up and down vote on the ordinance itself, because this is the stage we're at second reading, or make a motion to move it to a date certain. And just so you know the process, the motion, you wouldn't need a motion to vote on it.
you could just move to vote on it right now, because we're already in second reading. But if you want to move it to another date, then you have to make a motion to move it to a date certain.
If we move it to another date, if we make a motion to move it to another date, do we continue discussion, or does that end discussion?
No.
No, you can continue to have discussion until someone is ready to make a motion to actually vote on it. If you want to, if what you're lobbying your colleagues for is that their opportunity for everyone to say what they want to say before you take a vote, you can do that. You don't need a special motion. You're still in discussion on this matter. But as soon as someone wants to make a motion to do an up and down vote, then that will be a second, and then you'll go ahead and vote on it.
From the parliamentary standpoint, what the three subcommittee members and Mr. Wilson were doing was presenting their work to the council.
Correct.
A motion now will either move to approve it, move to put it at a date certain, but then we will have a period for council comment, and everyone can then comment on it. So, okay, Deputy Mayor Corp.
Yeah, so I think the main reason why we wanted to, and you had mentioned for us to amend the agenda to move it up, was so that we could talk about this, so that we could then hear the public tell us what they want to say about what we just did, because they're not waiting for the second public comment session, so that we could then make a decision what we want to do. Because part of the reason we did all this is because of the public, and if they have positive comments about what we've done, then that makes it a lot easier for us.
That is up to you all to decide whether you want to vote on it now or whether you want to move to a date certain. I'm not telling you to
Could we
do.
move it till later in this meeting?
You could move to amend your agenda again,
Okay.
and then you would amend it to move it back into, add it back into old business.
Right.
And then you have to take a vote.
Okay,
That
I was
would
trying
be,
to keep us clean
No,
from
and I
a
am-
process standpoint.
right, I am
Tell you
too.
what to do.
and that would be my motion, that now that we've discussed what the subcommittee has done, that I would move, that we move item number 12.4
Unfinished business.
back to unfinished business 12.4 to allow public comments on what we just talked about. I think we did that before.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to take item 5A and return it to 12.4 in unfinished business. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councilmember Guest.
I would like to state I'm ready to vote on this now. I don't feel that I need to talk about it anymore. So I was going to make a motion to vote on it now.
We have a
I
motion.
don't want to
on
put it
that.
off. I understand.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of amending the agenda and moving item 5A to 12.4, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have, the motion passes 6-1. Thank you, council. So item 5A, you've heard the discussion, that will go back to 12.4, well, it will be in unfinished business. We are now to our first opportunity for public comment. As a reminder to everyone that if you would like to speak to anything on or off the agenda, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Roger Westman, 2249 Palisade Boulevard. Thank you, council, for allowing this public comment session prior to your vote on this amendment. You truly do represent the citizens by allowing them to come forward and give their point of view on the hard work that you did do in your subcommittee. Again, thank you very much for having this comment period prior to your official vote.
So I'm Beth Elliott at 1485 Kitson Street, and I'm here as a public citizen tonight, not as a planning commission member. But I just want to thank the subcommittee for doing your due diligence and doing outstanding work. I think you caught things the planning commission didn't, And I think you have honored what the citizens have been speaking about for months. And so I'm grateful to you and thank you for the work that you've done.
I'm Reverend Dr. James Lewis. I chair the Commission on Archives and History for the United Methodist Church, which you ought to imagine has some interest in what you're doing. I'm also one of the officers of the Western Jurisdiction, which is the Western 13 states in Archives and History. You have a jewel among you. You have a series of jewels. One of them is the native tribe that was here, and the Nisqually tribe that was here and settled the area long before any whites were here. Have you considered their interest and their concern for how you're developing the land around you? The second jewel is you have one of the clear, important historical sites. You're talking about going ahead and putting warehouses over. And that is the historical site of Chloe Clark Williams and her husband and the other couple that with them, as they had the first white family from America in here. They had the first marriage, they had the first birth of a child, they celebrated the first 4th of July on the West Coast. You have a historic site that's been recognized. You can read something, if you haven't, about the old Fort Nisqually, or you can read from the marker that's just short ways away from here about Chloe Clark and her husband and the foundation of the Methodist Center there. I have a picture with me that was taken in 1921 of the Washington State Historical Society doing an analysis of this area. And they recognized that the historical site where the marker is for the Methodist Church is the accurate place for that marker. You're talking about putting warehouses over one of the most important historical sites in the entire state of Washington, certainly in western Washington. That seems foolish to me. Anyone that would have such a tool ought to be able to use that and use tourism and invite tourism in to not only see that site, but also to see the site of the original fort and the lives of the Native Americans that are here. The second thing I would say, besides the recognition of the historic nature, is how many different trucks and trucks and trucks and trucks you're going to have.
Sure, thank you.
And I'm sure the cities would not relish a huge number of trucks.
Sure, we have a time limit. Thank you.
John Dresser, 1437, Huron Court. And I would like to explain a little bit here. Jackie Turner Hook is also from the Buffalo Soldiers here. Andrew McLeod is not here tonight, but I think there is a representative from the tribe. And they are looking to do some important stuff here in regards to the mission site in that whole area down towards the water. And so, yes, they've had a lot of concerns, and we are coming together, and I have some positive thoughts of the ability for them to work together, raise the money, and take care of the crown jewels of this city. And at some point, we're going to invite everybody And we have already been meeting, and it's the beginning, and some aspects of the group move slower than other aspects, but I think we have something positive going. We need something positive, and if we can get the problems resolved around the golf course, and get the problems resolved around the monstrous gas station, and the traffic. The traffic, you come down DuPont Silicon Road, and it's blocked up all the way down to the stoplight, so we turn right and we'll go down Center Drive and get on 18. That's got to be fixed sooner than later. You have the mining issue that's staring us in the eyes again, and nobody's taking care of the wall, that 80-foot wall. It's not, we've already been told that the next major quake, which comes every 300 to 500 years, we're past the 300-year mark. That thing could fail, and the last company, a consulting company, even commented on it when they made the map of the whole area. So who's liable if that happens? And what happens to the hole in the ground? Becomes a lake. So those are other issues that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Lisa Merkel, 1471 Grant. Thank you, council members, and especially the subcommittee, for listening to your constituents over the past several months. You have been inundated with phone calls, emails, and letters. You have met with your constituents, your neighbors, and you have listened. Thank you. Thank you not only for me, but thank you on behalf of my children. Because of your hard work, you will ensure that future generations will have a safe, welcoming city to love, just like we do.
Gus Lee, 1280 O'Neill Court, DuPont. It really looks like usual suspects up here. I just want to thank the subcommittee in particular, Councilmember Barnes' language, well articulated, and to provide a possible overview, because this certainly doesn't resolve all issues. But a real breakthrough has occurred. One of the words that is in our political and has actually entered our ethical language is stakeholder. And what I think the subcommittee has done with a great deal of discernment and courage is to draw a distinction between citizens, citizens who posted lawn signs, who walked precinct for you, who did door-to-doors, did receptions, did meet and greets, the beautiful American democratic process. Citizens in one side, and on the other, quote, stakeholders, close quote. And somehow in the last meetings, I had the sense that they'd become muddied, that citizens were relegated to stakeholders, as if we were seeking some economic interest and were competing against others. Now, the way I learned law, most of American law comes from the British English tradition, common law. And in my studies of Lord Cook, I learned that stakeholder is a term from British gambling. And for a while, not tonight, there was a chance that we were gambling our citizenship in this town, this city, against people seeking profit. Gambling. Well, the democratic process has worked. The subcommittee has carried it. Enormous thanks and great admiration for city government for recognizing the difference between citizenship and economic enterprise. Thank you.
Judy Norris, 1485 Kitson Street. Since last fall, Save Our City, an almost 700-member citizen group of DuPont residents, has spent hundreds and hundreds of hours researching the rezoning proposal for Old Fort Lake. I thank the subcommittee, council members Penny, Eric, and Chris, for listening to your constituents who elected you into office to represent citizens' interests, not corporate out-of-towners who seek to change our zoning codes for their financial gain. Thank you so much for your research into the history of the Old Fort Lake zoning codes and understanding that warehouses and distribution centers have always, since 2006, been prohibited. As I read the proposed zoning code for the Old Fort Lake, I believe the subcommittee has kept the long-standing prohibition of freestanding warehouses and distribution facilities. This prohibition clearly works because no one has built warehouses on this property since 2006. Copperleaf knows the only way they can build their desired distribution warehouses is for the council to change the existing zoning code to allow them. So thank you, council members, for listening to your citizens and for being part of the democracy of America. Thank you.
Hello, Council. Maria Gaditis, 507 Louviers. I didn't plan on speaking tonight. I'm very tired. My brain's tired. We're going through probate with my dad, and I'm spending a lot of time with attorneys for that, so I'm exhausted. I want to thank you guys. I admire and respect you guys so much. The conversations we've had, they have not been easy all the time, but you've provided information and responded, and I appreciate that. I did want to say I hope we don't vote today, and the reason why is I didn't get copies of these documents till 8 a.m. and because I already was committed to working on probate, I couldn't look at it till 11 a.m. It doesn't give us a lot of time to turn that over, and I just know this was a complicated process. In the one revision where the noise level had changed to C, to industrial, I found that at 11:45 p.m. at night, after I had worked and cleaned and gardened and sat down and said I wasn't going to read that document. And I had a few minutes to look at it, and I found that we were changing that. It took me 4 hours to find it. So I didn't have 4 straight hours today because I had to deal with my dad's death. And I just would like to say that for documents like that, I think we need a little bit more than just a few hours notice because it's hard to peruse it, especially if you're already tired. So anyway, that's basically what I want to say. I'd like to also recommend with that commercial overlay that we're talking about for Patriots Landing, please put an exemption for the historic village. There will never be a time that a 7-story building will ever be appropriate there. If you could just take us out of it, the rest of the city, I think, has space for that, but we would just appreciate that extra insurance. So, Council, thank you again. We love you. We appreciate your advocacy. And staff, every one of you, we may not have agreed entirely on issues, but thank you for all your hours, too. We really do appreciate that.
Lee Chase, 3961 Shaw, but my heart's at 309 Barksdale. You wanted my address, you got it. I want to talk about 12-1. Last meeting I had some confusion when I left because I heard from one party that this was only for Patriots Landing, and yet I heard from another member of the city in the same meeting that it could be anywhere. And so I would echo what Maria just said, that perhaps it should say only in Gailey Village for this thing, for this community complete community overlay. But the other question I have is on page 128, line 10, the word generally 10 or more acres. Could you tell me specifically how many generally is? Does that mean that is 5 or more acres generally 10? Is one exception generally 10? I guess I would like to see it say at least 10 or more acres. I don't think that would affect Patriots Landing at all. Thank you.
Good evening. Guy Claude, 3070 O'Brien Street. First, I want to thank the council for listening. That's first and foremost. At times, I'm sure that you were like, please just let this be done. Please let us go on with this. But you took the time and you dug in and you found what was supposed to happen. Several weeks ago, I challenged you to be the advocates for the citizens, and you were. Now I have a new challenge for you. Continue being the advocates for the citizens. You are our representatives. You are our voice. You are here because we wanted you to be here. Remember that. Thank you.
Set these up front here, and I'll explain them later. Matt Ryder, ESM Consulting Engineers, 33400 8th Avenue South, Suite 205, Federal Way, Washington, 98003. There was a few comments in the last City Council meeting that I wanted to address real quick while I have the opportunity. There was concerns about the unit count per building and a few concerns about height, setback, and such. And it got me wondering if you guys had the latest Planning Commission recommended development code in front of you. So I sent an email back on March 20th. I also have a hard copy if that works for the process. Another item was the apartment building. Although we don't have anything designed conceptually right now, I did want to bring to the fact that where they would like to place it is towards the rear of the property, adjacent to the JBLM golf course. And so I printed out an exhibit which shows the topography. It's also included in the little packet that I have here that I'll hand out. Basically, there's about 20 feet of elevation change, 20 feet of fall towards the rear of the property where they would like to place it. That in association with the development regulations we're proposing, which include setbacks and site plan review items, I think would mitigate the impact, the visual impact of any future apartment. Again, this is a complete community overlay. Carriage would like to see an age-in-place community, which means that we have people who are nearing retirement or in retirement who can enjoy the apartment, and then as life progresses, we have the assisted living facility and memory care. So again, with the master plan we're proposing, it would allow us to implement a complete community overlay, but we can't do so without this development code, which we've worked on since November of 2016. Real quickly, and this is on Google Maps. It's a street view from McNeil Street, but this street view shows the Google car heading into the roundabout. And as you can see, I have an arrow which is pointing to their existing Patriots Landing facility. You can barely see it because we've got the existing single-family homes that they rent out. So again, that's kind of a reference to what could future be on the site, and again, minimal impact. Thank you for your time.
If there's
further public comment. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Motion would be in order. The motion from Deputy Mayor Corp with a second from Councilmember Coffey. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Thank you, Council.